Next up on the mic we have Venado. Let's give it up for Venado.
Hi everybody. My favorite type of poetry is epic narrative poetry. So things like the Iliad, the Odyssey, Beowulf, these are my favorite stories. Today I was listening to Jason and the Argonauts, and I'm writing one. So I'm composing my own version of the ancient myth of Perseus and Medusa. And in previous events at this space, I've done chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So today I'm going to be doing 10, 11, 12 for you all. And we'll get started with chapter 10 of Perseus and Medusa, Perseus in Egypt. When we last left our hero, Perseus survived a desert in Africa. He now thinks the gods have another task for him before he returns to Greece. We pick up the story as he lets his winged shoes direct his course. Then Perseus beheld before his eyes a mountain wall. He never saw such cliffs as that, so red with sun and tall. On seeing them, he rose to soar above them like a bird, and in his limbs his heaven-given strength once more was stirred. He flew all night beyond the hills till break of day was nigh, and rosy-fingered Eos rose up blushing in the sky. And then he saw the plains of Egypt spread before his sight, its gardens green with crops, its mighty river shining bright. He saw their many shrines and city ramparts tall and thick, and obelisks and pyramids and giant gods of brick. He landed in their verdant gardens swollen up with crops, and saw the people ply their trades in taverns, inns, and shops. The smithy's grill was glowing as he worked at bronze and clay. The miller's wheel was cycling in the flowing waterway. The farmers used a cunning string of gates to part the flow, which watered all their gardens as it wound through every row. But when the people saw their visitor, they crowded round. They cried, "Who art thou, stranger? What has brought thee to our town?" And Perseus replied, "I am a hero of the Greeks. I journeyed through your deserts many months, becoming weak. I therefore seek an inn for food and water and a bed, for I have slain Medusa, and my gods await her head." They gave him food and fruit and wine, and bid him stay and rest. And heralds darted through their towns reporting of his quest. Now at this time the people had a pharaoh at their helm, who ruled his people well, maintaining peace throughout the realm. His kingdom's breadth surpassed all else that Perseus then knew, with busy towns and farms where every man had much to do. And when the pharaoh heard of Perseus and his renown, he wished to meet the sojourner at rest among his towns. When Perseus awoke, therefore, he found outside his inn a troop of guards inquiring if the hero was within. They asked if they might bring him to the pharaoh's palace court, and Perseus, assenting, left behind his quaint resort. That evening they approached the palace gate, the king inside, and passed between a pair of golden sphinxes on each side. The soldiers ushered Perseus within the royal hall, the king upon his golden throne, and silver on the walls. The hero saw the signs of youthful vigor on his face. He clad his legs in linen, with a kilt about his waist. The pharaoh greeted Perseus and asked about his quest, and Perseus's answers left the pharaoh much impressed. "Methinks," the pharaoh said, "thou art a hero of renown. If thou canst really fly and strike the fiercest monsters down, then wilt thou demonstrate thy godlike powers publicly?" But Perseus replied, "Thou must not ask this thing of me. The gods did not assign these gifts to me to entertain. I think they have an errand for me here in thy domain." The king still wished to see his gifts and fell to trickery. "My realm," he said, "has many needs for such a man as thee. For me to choose thy task, might I not see thy skills alone?" The hero said he minded not, if only he was shown. The king replied, "My viziers should see thy powers too, for how shall they advise me, knowing not what thou canst do?" And Perseus said, showing them his gifts as well was fine. The pharaoh said, "If then thy will so well comports with mine, tomorrow thou shalt show thy gifts before my balcony. From there thy demonstration shall be easiest to see. And fear no evil if by chance the public should observe, for praise may come to thee and to the gods whom thou dost serve." Then Perseus assented, and was thus brought to agree to make the powers of the gods a sight for men to see. When morning came, he stood upon the terrace of the king, his brazen shield upon his arm, his saber glittering. The public looking on, he struck a crocodile in two, then flew up high and pointed out the wings upon his shoes. He then put on his hat of darkness, fading from their sight, while all the people watching clapped with wonder and surprise. Fading from their eyes, and then the surprise. Athena then beheld her hero's foolish vanity, and in her wrath sent down at once a double penalty. The pharaoh fell upon the ground, struck dead by no man's hand, for tempting Perseus to stray from her intended plan. And Perseus she caused to fall, unconscious and unseen, upon a statue of a god beside the mezzanine. The hero in his sleep knew only darkness and no sound, and due to what he landed on, his body was not found. While sleeping thus, Athena came with Hermes in a dream. She said, "O foolish man, why dost thou tarnish my esteem? Thy pride hast made thee fail the test I sent thee here to do, and use the gifts of heaven for a sport in public view. And therefore Hermes now reclaims his winged shoes and sword, and thou shalt have less help upon thy journey than before. I take my shield as well, the head and cape, though, thou must keep. Until they lie in Seriphos, thy task is incomplete. And also keep for now the hat the nymphs obtained for thee. Aware of this, though thou hast failed this trial set by me, thou shalt redeem thyself if thou shalt do as I command. Betake thee to the city Joppa, travel there by land. For there in Palestine, beside the European sea, another ancient monster lives, which must be slain by thee. And know that while thou stayest here in Egypt, thou must hide, for some here would accuse thee of the crime of regicide. And now, without our gifts, thou art in peril of their might." The dreaming Perseus then wept and answered, "Thou art right. Forgive me, fair Athena, for the pride within my heart, for I forgot the piety I showed thee at the start. If thou shalt help me, I shall be thy hero once again, and do as thou hast said, and seek no more the praise of men." Then Perseus awakened as the vision disappeared. He found himself much lightened from the loss of so much gear. He kept his hat of darkness on, and clambered down the god, and snuck throughout the city, being careful where he trod. The days were long since Perseus was forced to be asleep. The crowds were gone, and bands of mourners wandered round to weep. For they were now bereft of their young pharaoh whom they loved. But Perseus was quick to heed his orders from above. Invisible, he left the land of Egypt on his feet, and turned his steps to Joppa, so his quest might be complete. The people, though, amazed by how he flew and seemed so strong, acclaimed the hero's memory in poetry and song. They looked with hope for his return, and praised him as a god, and said their priests would see him come in golden sandals shod. They said when he appeared, their trees would bear abundant fruits, their streams would rise up higher, and their vines would grow more shoots. But Perseus went east and tracked the Red Sea's sandy shore, and passing by the Sinai desert, headed north once more. He joined a caravan that was to pass by Palestine, which took 2 months to reach the lands Athena had in mind. To be of help to them, the hero got himself a spear, and took up a position as a sentry at the rear. He learned the Cushites held the rule of Joppa at this time, a mighty southern people, dark of skin and bright of mind. Thus Perseus went up the coast, traversing mile by mile, through hills and valleys fair as those around his native isle. But then in Palestine he felt the weather growing hotter, and where their slopes decreased, the plains were flooded up with water. And as he came to Joppa's land, the very hills were shaken, for King Poseidon was enraged, and wished the land forsaken. Its skies were black with smoke, as flames consumed the fields around, and thunders ripped the clouds above, while earthquakes tore the ground. The frightened caravanners therefore hurried on their way, but Perseus hung back, his honor prompting him to stay. The awful task awaiting him within that land of grief consumed his mind, as well as how to bring it some relief. He put his hat of darkness on, and grasped his trusty spear, and crept along in silence, nearly paralyzed with fear. Thank you. The next chapter is called Perseus Fights a Dragon. but that'll be a little bit later in the evening. I'm going to go sign out, or sign back in again, and come up a bit later. So, thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Devontae. We appreciate that. Just